Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Andrew Brokos. This is the second in a series of videos that I'm releasing as part of a fundraiser actually for a nonprofit organization that I'm involved with called the Bay Area Urban Debate League. I'll have some more information later in the video about how you can contribute if you enjoy the video, but for now, just check it out, enjoy. And I'm very excited to be joined by Dara O'Carney. Did I pronounce it right this time?
You did indeed, yeah. That's spot
Super.
on.
So Dara is joining us from Prague, and I think at a hotel in Prague. So apologies in advance if there's any scratchiness on the call, but we're working with the best internet connection that we can. So thanks for doing this, Dara.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
What's the tournament that we're reviewing here?
Yeah, this is a nightly hyper turbo that runs on French stars every night. It starts 11 o'clock my time. It's one of the last tournaments that I register for as part of my session. As we'll see, it's a really fast tournament. Like all of the tournaments on French stars, you start with the illusion of being deep stacked, 10,000 chips. But this is a really fast structure, and there's antes from the start. And I think the whole tournament generally goes from 750 people to a winner in less than 2 hours.
And so I actually misread your screen name initially. I was thinking it was Kumin Chien, which would mean like a dog, and you corrected me. How do you actually pronounce it?
It's common Shen, which means like an oak, which is basically what Dara is in Gaelic. Dara means oak-like.
Yeah, much cooler name. So is your approach to a turbo tournament with this very fast structure? Do you find that there are certain spots that you play differently than you would play in a MTT with a deeper structure? I mean, obviously the stack sizes tend to be more shallow, but even if we keep all the other variables the same stack sizes, etc., do you find that you kind of gamble more in this sort of structure? Is there anything that you do differently?
I think there's two big adjustments to make. The first is I'm more likely to identify spots where it's plus EV to get it all in pre-flop. Um, because there's a big ante in this tournament, and I think a lot of people don't adjust for that. You know, they think in terms of big blinds rather than what's already in the middle when the action comes to them. And there are a lot of spots where there's an open and maybe two or three calls because a lot of recreational players play these tournaments and they like to see flops. And by the time it gets to you, you may be adding 20 to 33% to your stack if you get a shove through. So I'll be shoving what looks like an insane amount of big blinds, but actually in terms of risk to reward, it's very good. The other adjustment I make is that because the structure is so fast, in a slow structure tournament, I would tend to pass spots that I thought were fairly marginal. But in this, I would pretty much take every spot that I take plus EV because it's not the kind of tournament where you can sit around and wait for really good spots.
That makes sense to me. How big of an edge do you feel like you have in this? I mean, I used to believe, and Nate sort of argued against this, and I wasn't entirely sold until a tournament that I played recently where I played with people who really didn't know what they were doing with shallow stacks. I used to believe that there wasn't that big of an edge to be had if everyone has 20 or fewer big blinds. I kind of thought, like, how big of an edge can you have? But when people are making really significant folding mistakes, I think I might have underestimated how big of a edge is theoretically possible. When you play a tournament like this, how much of an advantage do you think you have once everybody is down 15, 20 big blinds?
Yeah, I agree. A lot of players who are used to slower structures or maybe cash players tend to underestimate the edges because even shallow, like if everybody has 20 big blinds and somebody has a big blind stake, that's a mistake. That's really significant. And often at that stage, like one big blind is actually a buy-in or more than a buy-in. Um, I think, like I've talked about this with guys who play a lot of hypers, and the general consensus is that we have maybe a 20% edge over the long run. It depends on it, but like you hinted at there, it does kind of depend on the types of players that you're up against and the types of mistakes they make. Because if they are just guys who are maybe folding a little bit too much or maybe even calling too much, those are mistakes, but they're not very costly mistakes, and they're not mistakes that translate to a massive edge for you. On the other hand, if you have guys who do fold too much, then your edge is big. Now, I think it completely changes over the course of the tournament. I think early on you have with 20 big blinds, you don't have much of an edge because um, the recreational players are actually looking to gamble at that point as well. They do kind of know that they're not.
Hey, I might have just lost you, Dara.
basically when there's more equity being played for. So I think that increases your edge.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, if you're thinking, maybe an edge as much as like 20% with the shallow stacks, I guess how does that compute with your not passing up any edge? I mean, it seems like maybe, I don't know, I guess that sounds a little like an argument to me why you might pass up some marginal spots.
Yeah, but the problem is that the the structure is so fast that you may not get plus EV spots.
I see.
I think in a normal slow structure tournament, you can be reasonably confident that you're going to get fairly decently plus EV spots, but in a hyper turbo, that may not be the case. And a lot of your edge actually comes from if you can get a stack, which covers a lot of people at the table. Then they become more scared. They play more scared against you.
That all makes sense. So this is not a sufficiently marginal spot for gambling.
Actually, I've lost the
Did you?
screen.
Okay, so it's the one. I don't know if you saw it. It's been I've had it paused on the screen for quite a while, but basically what we've got, the blinds are 150, 300, and there's 480 in the pot in the middle from the antes. The cutoff opens for 750. The button jams for 72.70, and you're in the big blind. You do have the button covered, but not by very much, and you have ace jack offsuit in the big blind.
Yeah, I think I'm well ahead of both of their ranges, and even if I'm not, like, there's so much money in the pot, I can actually be a slight dog here, and it can be plus EV for me to get it in, even if I get called.
That's what I was wondering, and you do actually fold this hand out of the big blind.
Yeah, I think at this stage of the night, I'm generally at my peak tables, so I might have 16 tables, so I may not have just picked up on the spot in game. The
Turns
problem
out you
with
would have put it in slightly
specific
bad
tournament.
and spiked an ace.
Sorry.
Looks like you would have put it in somewhat bad and spiked an ace.
Okay, well that's a good way to do it too. Yeah, when I'm playing that many tables, and because I'm away at the moment, like normally when I play at home, I have three screens so I can see all the tables that I'm playing on. But when I'm away, I play just on my laptop, so the screens literally jump up from behind each other. And when I'm 16 tabling in particular, I often don't register what the tournament is, so I just play my default game rather than go, oh, this is a hyper, I have to push this edge here.
I see. Is the screen still not up for you?
It's still not up, yeah.
Let me just pause the video for a second.
Okay.
Okay, Dara and I are back, and he can see my screen now. Sorry, like I said, we're dealing with a slightly finicky internet connection, but I'm very grateful to Dara for taking time out from his Prague trip. Definitely like this overcall with Jack 8 suited here. I mean, I can imagine trying to make a case for jamming, but I think there's a lot of value in just calling, and I think just calling is probably the preferable play, unless you have some reason to think these players are really going to be overfolding pre-flop.
Yeah, and I don't think at this stage of the tournament they are. So, with this type of hand which flops so well, I favor just calling and getting it in on a good flop, which this is.
Yeah, this looks like I mean, stack sizes are just perfect for you to check shove here, and I can definitely see him bet folding hands that have a lot of equity against you, and in most cases are favorites against you.
I think that's actually one of the mistakes that a lot of the recreational players make early on. They will over, I can even imagine guys folding hands that are ahead of Jack 8 actually most hands are ahead of Jack 8, but some guys will
ace 6 or something. I think.
Yeah, they'll fold ace 6, ace 7. I think.
Yeah, so I mean, even in this kind of worst case scenario, not quite worst case scenario, but you end up getting it in against top pair, and you're still extremely live against a hand like that, and you do end up getting there. Well done, like an oak. So I was thinking we were going to be tight on time, and I've kind of been skipping over hands that you weren't involved in. But I might slow down on doing that, because we are moving through this pretty quickly, and there might occasionally be a spot that's worth commenting on, even if it's not one that you're involved in.
Yeah, like as you'd expect in a hyper, it's mostly pretty. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I was thinking if you're gonna call off here, I would think you might be better off just shoving in the first place, which that would seem reasonable to me with the large antes.
Yeah, no, I think that looks like a misclick possibly.
Well, once again, piss off. How to win a hyper turbo, folks.
Yeah.
I forgot I was supposed to be watching this.
Generally, most of the time I play this tournament, I bust in the first 20 minutes. But one of the advantages of registering it is that generally my session is winding down. So if I do make it reasonably deep, I'll have a lot less tables and I'll be able to give it more attention.
Mm. And you won't end up, because I think what I try to avoid is starting a tournament that has the potential to run very long towards the end of a session.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
everyone
you
else,
want to register the big 440 as your last tournament.
exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a mistake a lot of MTT people make in setting their schedules is they don't allow for the possibility that they might run deep in something, and they just sort of keep filling up as many tables as they want to be playing whenever they see something good starting, and don't really think about either late registering in order to not start their session so early if they know the most important thing is coming later. I think that's a big deal on Sundays.
Yeah.
Or conversely, trying to do sit and goes, hyper turbos, even like Zoom cache. I think could be a good thing to fill screen time towards the end of a session if you if you don't want to start up a long MTT.
Yeah, generally, like in my last 90 minutes of regging, I'm just regging turbos and hyper turbos. Um, so then hopefully everything winds down at the same time.
This is sort of interesting with all the so we've got a limp, a min raise, a min bet on the flop. Um, I mean, I feel like Sil should really only be doing that with very strong hands. Like, I mean, I would think
Yeah,
there's a decent chance that Bug Lugs is going to limp shove, and
yeah, yeah. He should be, but to be honest, this site French Stars and this tournament in particular plays so strangely that
who knows?
you'll frequently be surprised with what people turn up with. Like it wouldn't if, like I wouldn't be stunned if he had like sevens there as well. And that's just the way he decided to play sevens.
Mhm. I actually think, I mean, if you're going to bet the flop with sevens, you probably should make it a min bet. I mean, it's mostly a
Yeah,
protection bet, so I mean, I don't really like the pre-flop raise, but uh, the flop bet I actually think makes some sense if you do end up with a weird hand like that.
sure, sure.
Sorry for that beeping in the background, but that was my dishwasher finishing up. So if you all were hearing any background noise before, it should be gone now. Ordinarily, I
Okay.
wouldn't record during something like that, but I figured I should just strike while the iron is hot, and while the yolk is available. How are things going for you in Prague?
Not great. I break the entire WPT festival, and so far, I can make my trip sound great if I say I made two final tables today, but it was in flip outs, where
I actually
where
don't
you
even know
basically
what that
make the
is.
final table if you win a flip.
Okay, so just like everybody goes all in the first hand.
Everybody goes all in the first hand exactly, and all the winners of each table advance to the final table then, which plays out as a normal tournament.
It's kind of a fun gambling structure. Seems comparable in some ways to
Yeah,
the
exactly. It's
spinning
some
go.
kind of structure, and then like when you get to the final table, yeah, it's a sit and go against people who haven't had to play very good poker to get there.
Yeah, interesting flop here for you with the double gutter. Um,
Yeah.
I wonder if, I mean,
Yeah,
is there a case for just check shoving this?
I think there's a case for check shoving. Certainly, I think my my reasoning was um, I hand with the double, but I also felt that I could run the flush if it came. Um,
Hey,
so
I'm sorry,
I was
Dara.
catching
The
dropouts as
quality of our
well.
call
So I
has.
just felt and the bet is so small. Okay.
Yeah, I think what you were saying is that
my thinking was I can sometimes bluff this unimproved. His bet is so small that I can actually calling his plus EV as well, and I'm lowering my variance a bit. I think by just calling.
Mhm. And I think because this is a double gutter rather than so I think like check calling with this hand is somewhat better than check calling with two clubs because when the club gets there, it's going to
Yeah,
be very sort of obvious, and you're not going to be very credibly be able to like bluff a straight when you have clubs. But with this hand, so I think like your implied odds are decent if you hit a six or especially a 10. It's not like an
yeah,
obvious big hand, and the clubs are an obvious scare card that you can bluff. So I can definitely see more of a case for check calling this than some other
yeah,
big draws.
yeah, yeah. That's basically exactly what I was thinking.
End. True to form. Spike the 10. I like the little check raise.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, looks great.
yeah,
And okay, and yeah, so I mean, on the one hand, it does look like he had a hand that would have folded to a check shove on the flop, but you can also imagine how you would have successfully bluffed quite a few runouts. I mean, this exact one well, I mean, this exact one also improves you, but you can imagine like quite often the turn is something like a deuce or a five or whatever. He checks back the king queen, he whiffs on the river, you bet the river, and he folds. I think that's
sure.
so. On the one hand, you can look at this and say, oh, maybe I should have shoved. He's betting really wide, but the fact that he's betting really wide also means that he'll be quite bluffable on later streets.
Yeah, I actually missed the turn action there. Did I? I check raised the turn.
Yeah, he bet 2,000 again, and you check raised to eight
Okay, so
thousand.
he picked up an open ender and decided to bet it. I wonder what he was doing if he didn't if he didn't pick up equity. He may have just checked back the turn then, and then I can possibly bluff the river
I
fairly
think there's
wide.
a fair chance, yeah. Or maybe he even just min bets any turn, and you decide that you can check shove at that point because his range is weak enough.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think a lot of people might have just check shoved that flop there, which I think is a defensible play. But I think your play is interesting and has a lot of merit to it, and quite possibly is better than just check shoving the flop. And I think it's the sort of thing that just doesn't occur to your average tournament player. They just sort of see an opportunity to profitably shove pre-flop or profitably shove on the flop, and they don't necessarily consider a lot of alternatives.
sure.
This seems like a good example of a spot where a lot of people will overfold, like when he does just peel from the big blind and then get a flop like this.
Yeah,
People may not appreciate that they should probably just get it in with any two cards that they saw the flop with. On a board
yeah,
like this that's so unlikely to improve you, a hand like 5-6 actually has like perfectly fine equity against you for that small of a bet.
yeah.
Yeah, certainly ace deuce. He should be happily calling with, but I think there's very little he should be folding in that spot. I mean, arguably a lot of it he should shove himself rather than check to you, but
Hmm.
I assume this is you would have called
Oh,
if Lucky
yeah.
Box had not been in
I
there.
was snapping off there because I would be getting well over 3 to 1.
Mhm. Which now you're getting 4.75 to one, but you've got to beat two people, and
Yeah,
arguably Lucky Box. I mean, if anything, this is a little scary that he didn't just ship his whole stack in there. But regardless,
yeah,
he's probably not calling as wide as he theoretically could be.
yeah. Exactly. Like at this stage, I think there's a lot to be said for just
Yep,
preserving your
aces.
stack. Yeah, that's the basis.
I think this is the first really big hand you've had. Your luck has mostly come in the form of suckouts rather than in the form of picking up big hands. But
Yeah.
here we go. Um, so I mean, I don't imagine that realistically you're ever folding after you call the 15K. But I guess your assumption is just that your opponents may not appreciate that and might change their
Yeah, no,
ranges.
that's exactly my assumption. I don't recognize either of these two players, so in my mind, they might. I have seen guys just go, "Oh, you just called," and they'll jam in Queen Jack or something.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things that happens in this tournament, as you go through it, I generally recognize more and more players, which kind of makes the point that the regs have an edge because they get deeper. I recognize two regs now on this table:
which is
Christoph and Krakow, the two guys either side of me.
okay. I actually don't think I recognize either of them, but obviously I don't play nearly as many tournaments as you do.
Yeah, well, obviously this is French stars, so these are French stars
Oh, of
names.
course, yeah. That the previous hand was slightly interesting. I think Ticomet open limped jacks from the small blind, which seems fine when you're that shallow, and got to induce his
Yeah,
opponent to ship it with 7-6 suited, which I actually
yeah,
think the opponent's shove is probably fine too, unless he has some reason to think that the open limp is just always strong.
yeah. I agree.
The thing is, like, even though it might seem a little suspicious when someone just open limps the small blind, there are so few hands that play better as open limps than as shoves. I mean, even something as strong as ace king really suffers a lot from giving free cards. Like jacks doesn't suffer that much from giving a free flop because there's a ton of hands like the big blind obviously has any two cards when you open limp. So there's a ton of hands that just have two undercards to your jacks, and they have a very hard time out flopping jacks. But even
Yeah,
to open limp with a hand like ace king, when your opponent checks 7-3 offsuit, you actually lose quite a bit relative to shoving and having them fold 7-3 offsuit. So I think that, it really takes an extremely strong hand to do like a trappy open limp, and even though it is
sure.
something
So
people do.
what's the weakest pair you would do that with then?
I mean, it depends a lot on how shallow you are, but I mean, with like 12 to 15 big blind stack, maybe like nines.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Assuming
it.
it's a spot where I want to be open limping and have like an open limp fold range as well. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, for exploitive reasons, there are spots where I might not do that and might open limp weekends anyway. But and then as you get deeper, I think it becomes more valuable to raise those pairs.
yeah.
Wow, he managed to find the case ace.
Yeah. Yeah, another example of like why I like limping in these spots because I think if I just raise or shove there, he might find the fold with the ace three.
I thought you didn't. No, maybe I missaw the hand. I thought you
I
did
think
raise.
I limped and he shoved.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Of course, if you min raise it, it's pretty hard for either of those players to
yeah.
stay
The
in.
other thing is my limp can look to Christoph like I'm prepared to get it in against
Thailand.
both of the blinds, but I'm limp folding to him
Mm.
because he's a reg. Um, or he may even try to three bet light and fold uh, to a four bet, thinking that basically I have a large range which is looking to play against the blinds but not against him.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. So this is actually a spot where you might open limp some hands that are not going to stack off to anybody behind you. Like you would stack off, I would think, always to Thailand, most of the time to
Yeah,
Bangladesh, but you might actually have a limp folding range against Christoph.
yeah. I think like really rag aces I would play that way because basically I'm opening a blocker. It's less likely there's an ace behind me, but if I do get played back at by either of the two bigger stacks, I'm probably drawing to three outs at
Very
best.
interesting. That never occurred to me before, but yeah, I like that a lot. I had a feeling I was going to learn something talking to you. This is not purely a charitable endeavor on my part. Is this an exclusive, by the way? Have you participated in a training video before?
No, this is my
Exciting.
very first time.
I'm so honored to be a part of it. This actually seems like a spot, not that I would necessarily advise doing it with ace king suited, but along the lines of what we were just talking about, looking at how short the player is in the big blind. This strikes me as a spot where you could maybe have an open limping range, a range that's going to limp and get it in against Boutte or Thailand maybe, but would be folding to Christoph or Bomber.
Yeah, yeah, no, it very much is because, like, as you can see already, there's so many shallow stacks at this table now that even though I'm in early position, in a sense, you can almost ignore the 26k stack, the 26k stack, and then 27k in the big blind. So it's almost like I'm three seats forward
Mhm.
um, from where I would be if we were all deep stacked.
And there's also, I mean, I don't think there's really much loss in giving a free flop to Buthe because he's probably stacking off with pretty much anything anyway, given that he's got almost a third of his stack posted blind. So, like we talked about before, the danger of open limping a hand like Ace King from the small blind is when your opponent just takes a free flop with 7-3. But here, he's probably calling off with, I mean, maybe not 7-3, but 7-5.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's really not that much danger in limping, and then if he checks, it's not like you lose very much because he's going to stick it in with anything anyway pre-flop.
yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's a perfect example there. That fours might have played better as a limp.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, the same reason.
Not that you would have minded being shoved on, but that's a pretty fine outcome when you have ace check.
Yeah, totally. There's so much in the middle now. There's 33k. No, sorry, 20. Yeah, 33k because the antes are really big in this tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that the ante's total almost two big blinds.
Yeah, like you can have the illusion that you're pretty deep stack here with 160k, but actually, you've only got an M of 5, or less than 5, in fact.
I wonder if we're very close to the money here that Willie is just folding after.
I suspect we are. Yeah, I suspect we are. And a lot of my experience in this tournament too is like having that kind of stack and having to just stall every hand and get into the main cash, because with that kind of stack, your equity in the tournament basically is your chance of cashing.
Mm. Yeah, Gareth actually was saying it was kind of inspiring to play with you or to watch you play because you'll do things like stall optimally, which
Yeah, yeah.
he said you were a true professional in that regard.
My friend David always talks about the time bank conservatory he's going to build when he retires with all the money he made from stalling. Yeah, I suspect it was the bubble just before, because now we're seeing the short stacks. Happy to get it in.
Mm. It's interesting. Do you consider this a trivial pre-flop decision? Is this at all close? I guess the big
No,
antes
I
helps.
don't like with the antes. I do. It's just the ante is so big. I have a much wider defending range than I would normally would. Like, I think people will go, "Oh, he's open for three big blinds. That tightens up your range." But I'm basically getting 3 to 1,
Yeah, slightly better even.
and it's a hand. Basically, and I'm going with the hand with any equity.
Mm.
I don't have to hit my king or my 10.
Although this seems like a check fold kind of flop just because
Yeah,
of how far you are, how
hope I.
far you're behind an ace.
Yeah,
If the same flop comes 8-6-4 with a backdoor flush draw, I take it you're shipping that.
yeah, exactly.
What if without the backdoor flush draw, would it still be a shove?
If the flop was what,
Let's say the flop is 8-6-4 instead of ace-6-4.
8-6-4. Mm, no, I think I'd need the backdoor flush draw. I think I'll go with any sort of decent backdoor, or but yeah, I don't think I would ship the 8-6-4 flop just because I'm not sure I'll even fold an ace.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds right to me. It gives you an idea of how close it is, though, that a backdoor flush draw ends up being the determining factor.
Yeah.
Hmm. Is that
That's a reasonably close spot, I think. But yeah,
Because one thing I'm noticing is that you're not even risking the full 158 against a fair number of the people behind you. It's
Yeah.
only Milanese who covers. So yeah,
Yeah, that's certainly a factor. I think if any of them get in behind me, though, I'm probably I have a hand that's going to be dominated a lot. I think.
yeah, I'm sure that's true. I'm just kind of thinking, I mean, because you're ahead of his range, right?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think I
just a
would go
question
with
of are
this.
you far enough
On,
ahead to take the
yeah,
risk of somebody behind you waking up?
I would definitely go with this on the button. I think, and I also think the fact that there's one bigger stack behind me is probably um, impedes me a bit. Like at this stage, I have 11 big blinds, and that might not seem like a lot, but in this tournament, it's quite a lot. Um, so even losing the 150K there basically puts me down to three big blinds,
Yeah, you've got
and
no fold equity on a shove anymore.
yeah, I think yeah, this is one of the when I talked earlier about how I take margin spots, I think I'm more willing to take them kind of early on as well to try and get a stack. But when I have a stack, I become a little bit more. I want to preserve my stack now.
Interesting. What a time to pick up aces. Um, is, is this
And
another one of these
that
spots
could
where you
find
could
some.
actually have a limp fold range?
Against him, yeah, I
Okay.
do. Um,
What a time to pick up aces.
yeah, I think it's fine actually because I have a limb fold range. Having said that, he probably dominates most of my limb fold range. So
I imagine Queen Nine suited isn't quite there, but this seems like a spot where you can shove a little wider than it might seem, just because Castman I would think can raise pretty wide, looking to get it in against Milanese, who's going to be playing close to any two.
yeah,
So I don't know,
yeah.
like Queen Jack suited. Are you shoving?
I'm definitely shoving Queen Jack suited, and I think I'd probably shoving Queen 10 suited as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
Queen 9 is just below the range, and again, I think if I was shorter relative to everybody else, I'd be happier to get it in. But now I have a well above average stack, so I'm not going to take the close spots.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. Do you think Castman should just be open ripping the sevens? Because I mean,
Yeah, I wonder what he's doing against me. Is he actually is he trying to induce me, which doesn't seem good to me,
no,
or is he raise folding, which also doesn't seem good. Um, I think he should be just ripping it.
yeah, because it's just like the kind of hands he's likely to induce are like Queen Jack suited that he really doesn't want to. I mean, he would just much rather you folded Queen Jack suited than shoved it.
Absolutely, yeah. And then if he's ever thinking of raise folding sevens, which is a possibility, that's pretty horrible too.
Yeah, because again, you could be shoving Queen Jack suited.
Yeah,
Actually, maybe we should.
yeah.
It
Now
was
I'm shoving a
at
lot
10-6 suited.
because I actually remember.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
just shipping it here.
Do you know how
Yeah.
many more hands are to go in the
Looks like
history? I'm just wondering what stage of the tournament this is.
looks like maybe 40 to 50 more hands.
Okay, yeah, okay, so it's definitely not final table yet, but yeah, I think um like Milanese is not going to call it off very wide, uh, and my hand is a plus EV shove against I'm a bomber if it was just me and him,
Mm-hmm.
so it's certainly close, but yeah, I think it's probably a profitable shove given how much they're both going to fold.
Yeah, I mean, it's even from Bomber's perspective. I mean, on the one hand, he's got a big chunk of his stack on there. On the other hand, it's still not impossible that he can have a little bit of fold equity if it folds to him like button or cut off. He might prefer to open shove
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, to maintain the
And like
ability to do that.
he's by no means one of the shortest stacks in the tournament with that stack.
Mhm. So, do you think that's a good fold by him with King Four offsuit? Seems like he showed it to you also, which
I
is
do
weird.
not think that's a good fold now.
I don't. Yeah, and I mean, even if he's gonna do it, like showing it to you seems like the worst possible.
Yeah, I remember I actually remember that hand in game, and when I saw the hand, I thought, "Oh crap, I've been called," and then the pot got pushed to me. Yeah, if he's going to fold a hand that strong, then it makes the case for shoving even stronger.
It really is remarkable. I mean, you don't see it as much online, but I mean, live tournaments, people will just tell you how tight they're playing. Like the tournament that I think we were talking about it off air briefly that I won recently. People were
Yeah,
just bragging about like their tight fold. Like someone,
they do. Yeah, I know it's amazing. They're just putting a target on their head.
yeah. And I saw somebody raise fold this on the, not really the final table bubble, but at the final two tables, raise folded ace queen off of 15 big blind stack from the small blind.
Yeah, yeah. Like I never understand that mentality because okay, if you don't want to play the hand and you really want to make the final table, then just don't open the hand. But there are guys you can, and a lot of the players that I make notes on, it's when I see them doing that, when I see them raise folding at that point in the tournament, because then you can exploit them really wide.
Yeah. So yeah, this seems like a pretty clear slow play. I mean, I think he's just going to fold way too much to a check raise, especially with you holding a jack. You're blocking some hands like Jack Nine and Queen Jack
Yeah,
that would be able to call a check raise. So yeah, I think there's a ton of value in just check calling here. Um, Interesting. I'd be pretty inclined to try to check raise the king on the river as well. I would think if he has a king, he's probably going to bet it, and he may try to bluff it without one.
yeah. I could go either way on this. I'd be interested to know what my HUD was telling me in game on his river betting frequency. Like there are a lot of players who will just check down all their showdown hands here, and they won't bet very wide, I'd say.
Mm.
But they'll actually call wider than they bet because they think they might have the best hand, and you're just trying to bluff them now with Jack Nine or Queen Jack or 9-7 or something. I think the recreation players in particular call rivers too much and don't tin value bet enough
Yeah, and probably don't bluff enough either.
and don't bluff enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
particularly against another big stack.
yeah. The advice I tend to give people, and I think this is actually a pretty bad call on his part, because he's blocking some of the hands that you might bluff with. So
Yeah,
he can't
yeah,
beat an eight. He blocks 9-7. I think that's probably a bad call by him.
yeah. I think it is a bad call, and again, it makes the point. I think he'd call wider. I'm pretty sure he was checking that behind.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he was.
Yeah,
The question is just whether there's more hands like this that will call but not bet than there are hands that will bluff but can't call. And,
yeah. I
and,
think
and if
there
a
are
king ever
for sure.
calls a check raise, that
I
becomes
think I
relevant too.
think he has a very narrow. He may not even have a bluffing range.
Yeah.
A lot of these types of players, they'll just take their stab on the flop, and then that's it.
My general rule of thumb, and I mean, this can vary player to player, but for playing against non-professional players, is just assume everybody is too loose and too passive, and
Yeah,
to exploit the passivity, you've got to do your value betting yourself. You can't
yeah.
be doing a lot of
100%.
slow playing.
Okay, we're getting short-handed now, so we must be getting near the final table.
This is not the final table, though, is it?
No, I guess not. No, I'm pretty sure it's not because I don't remember any of these players as being the guy I got heads up against.
Seems pretty reasonable across the board.
Yeah,
It's gonna have to be an any two call.
yeah, it's an any-two
And
call, but
just
you'd be
bake the two
surprised how
pair
many
on the
people
flop.
make that call.
Oh, and you still lost. Wow. He managed to have you in like the worst possible shape.
Yeah. I'm shoving my entire range there with the guys 5 big blind stack.
Mhm. Well, finally, a little bit of run bad for you.
Mm.
Not enough to keep you
I
down
remember
though.
that hand in the game. I thought I'd actually won it when I with my king. I was like, oh shit, didn't win it. Just it's a very minor point here, but the reason why I would have called there with the nines rather than reshoving is by leaving a few chips behind. We're on a pay jump, um, and I would have tried to stall my way through the pay jump
Oh, very interesting.
if somebody behind shoved it in.
Great example of what Gareth was talking about.
Yeah,
So you're saying you actually would
yeah.
have
I think
folded it
I
if
think
somebody
this is the
behind you
time
had
to play
shoved?
it now. I recognize the button to my big blind when I chopped Super Tuesday with two other players a few years ago. He was one of the two players that I chopped with.
Hmm.
He's a very good Greek reg. As I said before, Christoph has a reg as well. And to be honest, I don't recognize anybody else. Maybe I recognize
Random
Random
Donk.
Dunk. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
that's one that seems familiar to me, although it's
Yeah,
not such an
I think.
uncommon name.
Yeah.
Back on the pocket nines briefly, I'm not sure I fully processed. Are you saying that you would fold if somebody behind you
No, no,
shoved?
no, God, no. No, what I'm saying is, if somebody behind shoves, I was going to use my full time bank and hope that other
I
people,
see. Okay,
so I'd get through the pay jump.
that makes sense. Uh, this I imagine is not quite any two, but pretty close.
What happened there? I
You
shoved.
just open shoves.
Yeah, it's no, it's certainly not any two. I'm just trying to work out my M quickly. What's in the pub? There's 16, 21, 240. I have an M of approximately three. I can actually. You give me a second, I'll tell you my exact range.
Sure.
Because I played in a lot of sit and goes years ago, I did a lot of work with the ICMizer on different stack sizes, and I worked out, more or less shorthand charts on precise ranges I shove. So I actually shove 49% of hands here.
Okay, so yeah, and any two is certainly an exaggeration.
Yeah,
How much is
but
that
yeah, I'm shoving hands
influenced?
weak. It's 5-4 suited. So.
How much is that influenced by the fact that the big blind is significantly shorter than you? Does that enable you to shove
It's
wider?
it's it's partially, but this is one of those weird spots where because the small blind covers me, it's a disaster for me when he wakes up with a hand.
Mm.
Particularly because if you look around the rest of the table, from my ICM perspective, Christoph is very short, Tom is short, Pepetrus is a good bit shorter than me. So I really don't want to bust at this point.
Mm.
And that's another reason why I would like shove this hand rather than limp it, because I think random donk would probably just pounce on almost any limp.
Yeah. How wide should Ratoons be folding with putting up such a large chunk of his stack blind?
He still has to shove. He still has to fold pretty wide because of his ICM considerations.
Mm.
Christoph is shorter than him. Tom is almost as short. There's a good chance those two are going to bust in the next orbit even if he doesn't make a move. So like I don't think he's going to fold any ace or jack ten or anything like that. But I think he will fold some hands that are better than mine. Queen five, queen six.
That's a mistake I would have made in his shoes. It sounds like I would have called off too wide there, as I would not be folding queen 60.
Yeah. This is another spot where I just shove because I don't want to raise fold.
Yeah. And having an ace in your hand really increases the profitability of that move a lot. Just
Yeah,
makes it so much
yeah,
harder for
totally.
someone to wake up behind you. Um, I imagine you would have some kind of just calling range here. I can understand why Queen Eight offsuit wouldn't be in it, but I would think maybe like some of your really biggest pairs you would just call with.
Some of my biggest pairs I'll call, and then I'll balance that with some hands that I'm actually prepared to fold if
Mm.
random down decides to stick it in.
Yeah, that I'm kind of. I mean, because it's pretty tempting here with the odds that you're getting. If random dunk doesn't stick it in that often, you can probably call here quite profitably. Although I guess he probably will stick it in pretty often against one of your calls. Because like we were
You
saying
mean
before,
if I
there's just
call
not
with
that
Queen?
many hands that you can really comfortably slow play.
Yeah, like even though I have some hands I want to get in here, I don't particularly want to get in against his stack and lose at this point of the tournament either.
Yeah, so
Um,
even like Ace King here in the small blind, I think you probably shove rather than call.
Um, no, I probably would call Ace King purely because I think a lot of his shoving range is dominated by Ace King. Like I think he'll stick in, pretty much any ace. And
Wouldn't he call off with pretty much any ace too, or no?
no, I think if I shove, he might fold Ace Deuce.
Hmm.
Um, because he has ICM considerations as well. He might not. I'm not. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he'd certainly shove some dominated, or sorry, he'll fold some dominated kings, which he might shove.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually like Jim's shove there as well with the 9-8 suited, because
Yeah, you
I
just
really
shoved
can't
under the
call.
gun.
I can't call too much.
So now we must be final table bubble.
Our final table possibly.
No, because we just went from yeah
Oh, you're right. Yeah, yeah,
this now
yeah.
is the
Right,
final table.
right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember Jim being on the final table and ran donk, and that's what made me think that was fun. But I think our table became the final table.
Mm-hmm. So coming in now, you're obviously in a very good spot. You are the chip leader unless Poker Manu wins his hand. Okay, so you've got the chip lead at the final table, but with stacks this shallow, is there room for you to do a lot of like bullying? I mean, I guess you can jam pretty wide if it folds to in late position, just because there's a lot of ICM pressure on like these three and especially these two in the blinds.
Yeah, I think it widens my jamming range against those guys for sure. Um, and
Yeah, okay,
I
good
also
example.
think, yeah, I also think the shorter stacks will play a bit tighter than they would normally because they're all hoping the other shorter stacks will bust first.
Right,
So
which
there'll
is
be
great for
more,
you.
yeah, there'll be more spots for me basically.
Yeah, like the longer Dr. Squeeze lingers, the more pressure there is on Duda and Fufu and Random.
Yeah, totally. And you can see he folded there. Now he's getting such a big price, and he's such a short stack, and I'm obviously doing that with a
Yeah, quite
super wide
wide.
range that he should be calling too wide.
But we'll see. Maybe he'll successfully ladder.
Yeah, true.
So I already know how you finished. I'm sweating Dr. Squeeze now. Oh, your chip lead has been usurped.
Yeah. I remember actually being quite happy though because that Jim had been crippled there because he was the guy I identified as the best player at the table.
Mm. And that actually, I mean, that was a good example for Dr. Squeeze, where there was a chance Simply was going to be eliminated on that hand, and Dr.
Yeah,
Squeeze would have laddered. And even now,
yeah,
like he has more chips than Jim Ballas does.
totally. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. You might need to revise your opinion on how big an edge you can have when you
Yeah,
see
I mean
guys
that
raise
just
folding off eight
seems.
big blind stacks.
It seems like he should just not be min raising anything. I mean, he can't
Yeah,
really. I don't think he can
I,
really min raise fold, so he should probably just be shoving like whatever he's going to play.
and I would not be surprised if if he folded a better hand than mine.
Wow.
I could see him folding king jack there or a reg ace.
Yeah, I mean a mistake like that at the final table is just that's just a tremendous amount of free money for you.
Yeah.
Do you give any thought to betting the flop here?
Yeah, I did. Um, I think one of the factors in my decision here was I really wanted Jim Ballas to be eliminated from the tournament, because he was the only good reg left.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, but there's certainly a very strong case for betting the flop, I think.
What would you do if Laya bets? Are you just check calling?
If Laya calls, and the other thing is if Laya check raises, I'm in a pretty horrible spot. If he check rips, so I think I just took the you could call it the coward's way or the low variance way, but it's just like try to get to showdown.
I'm real tempted to value bet now. I can't see Laya having a hand better than Queen Ten.
Yeah, but is he
You
going
just
to call with anything worse?
I guess not. I mean I guess because it's a
There's two all ins, like
yeah you can't really bluff here. I guess.
yeah,
I mean, if he's a good enough player, I don't know. I feel like we were just talking. Like this is a good example. Just seems like the kind of hand that maybe he ought to fold to a river bet. Might even say probably he ought to fold to a river bet, but I would think maybe a fair number of less good players might not. You know, similar to that pocket sevens call we saw earlier. Just one bet on the river and might just make a
yeah,
bad call.
yeah. I agree. I think it would be a really optimistic call on the river, given just how weak 7-6 is on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he might call that hand. Yeah, sure.
Curious to see how Ride Duda is jamming. Yeah,
I think I limped the button there, did I?
I thought you min raised, but yeah, it might have been a limp actually, because yeah, he's the big blind is just all in.
Yeah,
Yeah, post the big
yeah,
blind all in,
yeah.
so
I
you
limped the
can just
button because, um, yeah, I basically saved the big blind when doing a max wakes up with the hand.
And how wide do you think you can do this?
Limp. Ooh, I'm limping very wide.
That's what I'm.
Um,
Yeah, I would think like almost anything you could.
Almost any. Like I'm not going to limp, seven deuce or three deuce, but yeah, I'm going to limp well over 50% of hands here.
Um, and are there? I mean, I guess there are some hands though that you're jamming. Like I mean, I think like pocket sevens or something. You would jam rather than any of
Uh,
them.
yeah, certainly the weak lower pairs when you pocket sevens, and also I think some weakish aces,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to limp fold or in case he's sticking it in with king queen or whatever. Um, yeah, there is a jamming range, and it's not very strong, but it's basically hands that I think are too strong to limp fold.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just kind of thinking it might be pretty profitable for him to jam here. I mean, I know there's a pretty significant ICM, problem when you wake up with a calling hand, but it seems like you're going to be folding to a shove really often when he jams. Now,
Yeah, I think
granted, he still doesn't win the pot. He's still got to beat Doctor Squeeze, but
true. I think the fact that I have a jamming range as well, and that's sort of my middly hands. So it's like the weaker pairs and the weaker aces,
mm-hmm.
and maybe hands like King 10. I guess I might jam as well. Because once you're taking those hands out of my range, and then I have all the monsters still, and I think that gives me a bit more balance that he can't just rip any two
Mhm.
or rip very wide because there are enough monsters I think in my overall limping range then that he's burning money if he does that.
Any ace is an easy shove for him, yeah.
Yeah, oh totally 100%. And like it's the blocker effect of the ace as well
Right.
because he has the ace it's much less likely I have an ace.
Just wondering, is there any case for open limping this since we've been talking about open limping?
Possibly. Yeah, there is. There's certainly a case for limping this. I think what I was slightly afraid of might happen is Dudamax might limp, and then the two blinds are in as well, and I have to play the pot four way.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, there's. I mean, this hand is so strong. I'm basically trying to get it in even against Dudamax.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I
yeah,
mean, this is still like really nice outcome for you. That can't happen if you limp. Also,
yeah,
if everyone just folds and you get to
yeah.
win.
Well, like there's 432K out there, so that's a huge pickup.
Yeah. And like, I mean, Poker Manu actually, even though that's a big chunk of his stack sitting out there, he's not the shortest stack. So there definitely is some pressure on him to not just stack off with whatever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
And
you're
that's the same player who min raised folded against you before when you jammed the king 10 or whatever it was.
yeah,
So yeah, all the more reason to to raise and expect he's probably overfolding.
yeah.
It seems I don't know. I don't want to fold too much in Laya's seat, but I guess there's a fair number of hands that are just queen five offsuit kind of hands. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, yeah, I think Queen Five would be. Yeah, it's a really good spot for Simply, obviously, because Lai is very much handcuffed. He should still be calling pretty wide, anything which is likely to flop equity. Um, but with Poker Manu clinging in there with the shorter stack, he really wants him to bust before he has to put it in.
What can simply raise fold here? I'm wondering if
Uh,
he shouldn't just be
that's
jamming.
that's a very good question. Hmm. He might just have it might just be the absolute junk, like 2-3 off or something.
Yeah,
Because I can't imagine he can even do this with an ace. He would just jam a really rag ace or a rag king.
that's the thing.
Uh,
I feel like he should really be jamming like most of the hands he's gonna play.
yeah, yeah. I don't think he has a very wide inducing range, but I also think that Laya can't really exploit that.
Mm.
Again, this is a trivial call given the price I'm getting.
It might not be a coincidence that Manu had a pretty strong hand for the situation.
Indeed, indeed. I was just hoping a strong hand was something like it.
So I guess here you don't necessarily want to induce a shove from simply by min raising, huh?
No, I didn't. And particularly the way he was playing, I didn't think I was necessarily in tremendous shape against the shoving range, but I
Mm.
felt that Ace Jack was too strong to raise fold or limp fold. So yeah, just it was just a case of get it in first
Yeah,
and
that makes
use
sense.
my fold equity. And exact same there. I
Mm.
don't want to raise fold to anybody, and now I'm in a really good spot, obviously with the two shorter stacks.
Yeah, I was about to say, I guess you can't do any two here, but you can go pretty wide to
No,
just
I can't do
shove.
any two, but I definitely go a lot wider than I would normally. Uh, e.g.,
Yeah,
e.g. Queen Eight.
yeah. I mean, I would think you could jam a hand a good deal weaker than this.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
for
just, I
sure.
mean, simply there's so much pressure on him to not call with two shorter stacks behind you, and these two are so short that you're not even risking that much if one of them wakes up with a hand, and
Yeah,
like simply, I mean, let's say simply has ace ten. Is that a fold?
yeah. I think he's probably going to call Ace 10 just the way this particular tournament plays. But he might fold it sometimes. I think one of the caveats to that is because I have shoved so many hands in a row. Sometimes people just kind of get impatient and they go, "Oh, he's shoving every hand now,"
Yeah.
and they look down at an ace and they call. But then I'm not even in horrible shape against a lot of those hands, and he
So
wakes up
he
with
did
a 10.
manage to wake up with one of those rare hands that could
Yeah,
call, and like you said, not in horrible shape.
yeah, yeah. I think he obviously he's just unlucky there. He's supposed to go with that hand. And now I'm in an amazing position against two
Yeah.
shots.
Um, is this a? Well, I guess I can see what you do. Yeah, I thought you might fold that.
Yeah, I think just keeping the two guys short and playing them off against each other now has a lot of equity. They'll both be looking at the other guy. They both basically think they're playing for second place now.
Mm-hmm. And they
Poker
are.
Manu,
I mean,
yeah, Poker Manu clearly folded his button, thinking I was going to shove any two. Um,
yeah, and now you can, I think, shove any two next hand. Like once you
yeah,
fold the 6-3,
yeah,
now it's just like very hard for either of them to call a shove on this next hand.
yeah, exactly.
And Poker Manu does in fact find the fold with half of a stack in the middle, and you jamming, if not any two cards, damn close.
Yeah.
Whoa. That seems like a disaster for Manu to stick it in right now. After everything else that he's done,
Yeah,
wow, what
agreed.
a. So
Agreed.
not only has he made a tremendous number of folding mistakes. Sorry, by the way, Poker Manu, if you're watching. But not only has he made an absurd number of folding mistakes, but now he's making a horrendous ICM calling mistake when Dynamax. There's a very good chance Dynamax will be eliminated on this hand.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I'd love to know what he folded last time because he had, like you said, he had half of his stack in and he still folded. And in this case, he has approximately the same amount of his stack in, but he has the very good chance that Dynamax is going to bust and he's going to ladder.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Which,
it's such a disaster for him to call it pocket sixes there.
yeah, yeah, great. Yeah, I final tabled the Supersonic on Stars recently as well, and it was a much higher quality final table, and you just didn't see those kind of mistakes happening. There was one guy who laddered to third place, and he basically was all in on an ante, I think, in the end. But he recognised there were spots where he just wasn't supposed to call it off because of the
Yeah.
ICM and other people's probability of busting.
So speaking of disasters,
This is a 3x fold, is
3x folding off of this stack does not seem like a good idea.
it?
Heads up.
Yeah, yeah.
That was probably a bad fold.
Yeah, I think possibly maybe I should have folded there. I thought about that hand afterwards because he was playing so weirdly tight. But then I'm getting such a good price. I think even against his hand, I have the right price.
Yeah, I
So
mean, 9-8 suited. I could see folding like 9-7 offsuit or something, but 9-8
yeah,
suited, that has a lot of equity even against strong.
yeah, 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 100%. Like I'm really only in terrible shape if he has eights plus, which he's not going to have very much.
This is interesting. I thought this was just going to be a shove. Are you thinking he might
Uh,
actually fold if he rips it? Or are you thinking this is strong enough to induce?
yeah, I think I was folding because of the way he was playing. I can't imagine I'm juicing here.
I mean, if I'm in his shoes, I'm shoving pretty wide against your button limp. But
Yeah,
I
I
guess that's not why you're
think
not
this
doing it
might be the
against me.
first time I've limped heads up as well, and often that sets off their monsters under the bed syndrome.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is a weaker hand than King Queen, but I think it's a profitable shove.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think you must have been planning to limp call the king queen then.
I think I probably was actually. Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, no, I would have been for sure because I think there's enough hands that King Queen dominates that he'll stick in if I
That's the
limp.
thing. Like, I mean,
Oh,
he's certainly going to jam like king 10 and quite possibly
yeah,
king
yeah,
8.
100%.
So,
No, I was definitely inducing there because, yeah, he's going to shove a lot of the worst kings and queens, and then the hand flops so well as well.
right, even if he checks, it's not such a
Yeah,
disaster.
it's not a disaster when he checks.
At least he got the 3x folding out of his system. Min raise folding is a lot more defensible.
Yeah.
Is that one that you would have called off against a better player? Check
Yeah,
fold?
for sure. Uh, I would definitely call against a player. I think against this guy, I felt he was just going to make so many bigger mistakes that even if that was a marginally
Yeah,
profitable call, just to reduce variance, it's better for me to.
agreed. Oh, you actually managed to be ahead here. Nice end. Well, thank you again so much for doing this. I will say, I mean, not only do I appreciate having the content, but personally, I learned a fair bit from talking to you. It was awesome.
Oh, excellent! Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Prague. Say hello to Gareth for me.
Well, indeed, and best of luck with your fundraising.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Cool.
Wow, 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 that was good. I almost cannot believe we are giving that away for free. This is an exclusive here, people. Nowhere else can you see Dara O'Carney talking strategy. Not just that, we watched him win a tournament. We talked about some, I think, really some pretty advanced turbo type stuff, some pretty advanced final table ICM type stuff. Definitely some eye-opening things for me as someone who doesn't spend a lot of time thinking about how to play a 15, 20 big blind stack. He really opened my eyes to some of the options that are available to you other than just, open shoving pre-flop with a pretty wide range. So I know I was one of these people, but I mean, anyone who can watch that and think that there's not a lot of skill involved in a turbo tournament, you're just crazy. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you don't mind that I just called you crazy. If you've already contributed to this cause, really appreciate it. If not, please take a moment and do it now. Whatever you think this video was worth to you, I'd really appreciate it. This is for the Bay Area Urban Debate League, which is an organization that I'm closely involved with. I'm in fact a member of the board of directors here in San Francisco. I've been working with this organization for about a year, but I have 15 years of experience working with urban debate leagues in general, and I can tell you that it's really just a great cause for kids who go to schools, come from neighborhoods, maybe come from families where they don't have a lot of kind of academic intellectual outlets. The opportunity to participate in competitive debate can really be life-changing for a lot of kids. It's maybe the first time that anyone has really cared about their opinions or given them an opportunity to sort of take ownership of knowledge, and it helps them to become successful advocates for themselves, for their communities. For many of them, it's the only reason that they remain in school, keeps them out of trouble after school, gives them a place to go, gives them connections with well-meaning adults and with kind of academically oriented kids from other schools. Just a kind of fantastic opportunity across the board, and this is a great opportunity for you to support it. Any donations made during the month of December 2015, first off, are going to be matched, which means that every dollar you contribute is going to raise $2 for the organization. Now, we've got a donor who's matching contributions made to this campaign. Secondly, for every $500 that we raise, there's going to be another video like this one out there for free for people to watch, hopefully to generate more donations. So your donation will help to create more awesome videos like this one. And finally, if you donate $10 or more, you will be entered in a drawing to win a free month membership at Tournament Poker Edge, to get a custom video made by me, to win some free stuff from the Nickcast store, for those of you who know what that is. So lots of good reasons to contribute. You can actually, right here on the video, click where it says donate to this fundraiser. You can also see this is, if you want to go follow the URL yourself, this is where you would go, but you can also just click right here on the video. It should take you to the site where you can contribute. Again, $10 is the minimum if you want to be entered in that contest. Every $500 we raise equals a new video. You can see here the names of all the generous people who've contributed already, and I really hope that you will be one of them. Thanks again.